Guten Tag and welcome to PA Dutch 101. This is video 12 in our series and we'll be covering the topic, the nominative case. Or we don't really have a Dutch word for it, but I gave the closest thing I could think of, and that's nominative. This is a grammar-based video. If you haven't seen the previous videos, I would invite you to watch them first. It'll make things a little bit easier to understand in this video. Although, as I said at the beginning, this is a grammar-based video, so no vocabulary building in this one today, but a very important topic that we do need to cover. So let's jump right in. So what is the nominative case and what is case? If you haven't done anything as far as grammar studies recently, if it's going back to middle school or high school for you personally, this will be a good review of some of these terms, and we'll have to think about how English works a little bit to maybe understand or understand why Pennsylvania Dutch does what it does and how that works. So let's talk about the nominative case. Whenever you hear the word nominative or case, it's referring to the subject of a sentence. We know that every sentence has a subject. That is a noun. That is the subject of the sentence. So that I think everyone has a good handle on. So think nominative case, subject. Other nouns in a sentence take different cases. Don't worry about that right now, because these will all be discussed in future videos. But if we take a basic sentence like, the boy sings a song, the boy is the subject. Therefore, when we're thinking in grammar terms, the boy would take the nominative case. Sings is our verb, the song or a song, that's a noun, but that's something else. That takes a different case. We're not going to worry about that today. That will be covered in the future. Okay. Now, here's one thing that's very different from English. All nouns, no matter what they are in Pennsylvania Dutch, have an assigned gender. This is very different from English. In English, the only nouns that have assigned genders are nouns that have a gender. Think of like the boy, the man. Those are all masculine. The woman, the grandmother, the aunt. Those are all feminine because they're females. And boy, man are male. Those are really the only nouns in English that we assign a gender to. But that is not the case in Pennsylvania Dutch. Every noun, no matter what it is, inanimate objects included, have genders. And this is difficult for English speakers to wrap their mind around at first. And what really makes it difficult, I think, for most English speakers is that the genders do not make sense to most English speakers. Therefore, when learning new vocabulary, always memorize the gender as well as the Pennsylvania Dutch word. I'm going to repeat that phrase probably 4 times in this video. I'm going to do it right now again. When learning new words, looking them up in a dictionary or hearing them from another speaker, always memorize the gender. This will start to make sense a little bit more as we go along in this video, but that is the key thing. Every noun has a gender in Pennsylvania Dutch. Okay? The first thing we want to talk about in regards to the nominative case is what we call the definite article, and that's the grammar term for the word the. In English, we have only one way to say that word. It's always the. The remote, the pen, the shirt, the hand. In English, all of those things take the, because they don't have assigned genders. But in Pennsylvania Dutch, all of these things have a gender. The remote is something different from the shirt, is something different from the pen, is something different from the hand, is something different from the finger. That's why this is a little difficult at first. In the nominative case, we use the following definite articles. So as you can see, essentially there are 4 ways of saying the word the in Pennsylvania Dutch. And it determines, how you determine which one to use is dependent upon the noun that you are working with. There are 4 genders in Pennsylvania Dutch. There's masculine, feminine, neuter, and plural. Plural, of course, more than one. Here are the 4 different ways of saying the word the in Pennsylvania Dutch based on these 4 categories. All masculine nouns use the word der, D-E-R, der. All feminine nouns use the word die, D. All neuter nouns use the word s, S. and all plural nouns use the word die. Die. Now, at first, this is going to not make a lot of sense to you, but as you start using nouns and practicing, this will start to really make sense, okay? And you're going to not even, hopefully, get to a point where you're not even going to have to think about it, okay? But at first, it does seem a little daunting, but just hang in there, okay? And here is the pitfall when working with these. Now, as I've explained, given the fact that all nouns have a gender in Pennsylvania Dutch, it is vital, here we go, it is vital that you learn the gender when you learn a new word. I told you, I'm going to tell you that a lot. Okay? How you're going to run into this the most, when you're looking up a word in a dictionary, you will see something like this. No matter which dictionary that I advertised there in video number 1, both of them deal with it this way. Let's say you wanted to look up the word for book. You find the English word book. Behind it in Dutch will be the word boeg, B-U-C-H, then a comma, and then a little italicized N. Now, how do you interpret that as a new learner? Well, what that all means is that little N signifies that boeg is a neuter noun. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's not masculine in nature, that it's not feminine in nature. It just happens that boeg is a neuter noun in Pennsylvania Dutch. Given that chart we just looked at, if that was in a sentence and it was the subject, the book would be es boeg, because it's a neuter noun. If this was a masculine noun, then it would be der. That's why we had the 4 different ways. Okay? So that's how you interpret that when you run into those on a dictionary. And that's why I'm telling you right now, if you did look up the word boeg, or any word in Pennsylvania Dutch, as soon as you see that little italicized letter behind it, commit that to memory. Don't just memorize boeg. Memorize es boeg. I can't stress that enough. Okay? And here is the big pitfall, as I mentioned earlier. Nouns are not necessarily masculine, feminine, or neuter by nature. I mean, if you think about it, if you take the word, I don't know, let's say chair. Now, if you're thinking of that as an English, does that seem masculine? Does that seem feminine? No, it's neutered. It's neither. It has nothing to do with it. You would look up the word chair and you would find it's der Stuhl. It's masculine noun. It just happens that way, okay? Memorize them. One other thing to remember in Pennsylvania Dutch, all nouns are always capitalized no matter where they are in a sentence. That's also a big difference from English, okay? So, yes, at the beginning of a sentence, of course, but also in the middle of a sentence, too. They'll be capitalized, okay? Now, we covered the word the. The other major article that we have to learn is the indefinite article, which in English would be a or an. We know that in English, a or an is indefinite because it doesn't specifically identify the noun that it's associated with. There's a big difference between the book and a book. Okay? This one is definite. We know it's the book right there. But a book is indefinite. It could be any book. Just a book. Okay? So, these are really easy. The ways of saying a and an in Pennsylvania Dutch in the nominative case. If you notice, look at the chart real quickly, we still have our 4 genders, masculine, feminine, neuter, plural, but notice that it's the same word for all 3. Now, why isn't there a plural? Because you can't say a or an in the plural. You can't say, I just bought a books. Doesn't make sense. So I left that one blank. But all 3 genders in the indefinite articles in nominative case are en, 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 en. Okay? So if we go back to our original thing, we were dealing with es boeg, the book. A book, book is neuter, it would be en boeg. Okay? Now, let's use all this in practice. Those charts, if you're keeping notes or keeping a notebook or something like that, I would put those tables and charts in your notes and refer to that. You will be referring to them from time to time. So it's a good thing to have kind of like as a grammar card or grammar cheat sheet, whatever you want to call it. But let's practice a little bit. Okay? So here I have a sentence. What I want to say is the boe, which is the word for boy, and notice I'm giving you the gender, it's masculine, is dat driven. So we think back to our chart, how would we say the boy is over there? If I'm telling you that boe is masculine, and I want the form of the, check your definite article table, and you'll see that it's der Bu ist da drüber. Okay? Der Bu ist da drüber. What about this sentence? I want to again say the word the. This time I have the word Frau, which is a feminine noun, little f there, word for woman. Wohnt in Elstown. We want to say the woman wohnt, remember that, to live, in Elstown. Elstown is a common Pennsylvania Dutch form for the city of Allentown. So, what is the feminine form of the? Think back, check. Die. Die Frau wohnt in Elstown. Die Frau wohnt in Elstown. Here's another one. This time I want to say the Schof. Schof is a neuter noun. It's the word for a sheep. Ist weiß. So I want to say the sheep is white. It's neuter. Check your chart. For neuter nouns, it would be es Schof ist weiß. Can you see how it's starting to throw things off? Okay? Those are three different things, but they all have a different form of the. Okay? Now, this time I want a form of a, the indefinite article. A Fenster, and I'm telling you that Fenster is neuter, it's the word for window, Fenster, ist gebrochen. A window is broken. Fenster ist gebrochen. If you remember your chart, you don't even have to you can just shout it right out. What is the form of a, no matter what the gender is? Ein Fenster ist gebrochen. Ein Fenster ist gebrochen. A window is broken. Okay? Eppes noch, a little bit more. Please remember, or let me warn you, and I think you probably can figure this out, this deal between gender and case can often frustrate learners. As the video series continues, we're going to find out that there's more than just one case. So today we covered the nominative case. There's going to be 2 more cases that we're going to cover down the road. And a lot of learners, once they start dealing with genders and all these different cases, they start to get frustrated. I agree, at first it can be frustrating, but you just have to keep trying, okay? And eventually, it'll get to the point where you're not thinking about it anymore. Same with any other skill. When you're learning an instrument, for example, at first all those different fingerings, whether it's a saxophone or a violin, it can seem extremely daunting. But eventually, just through muscle memory, and that's basically what we're doing here, but instead of muscle memory, it's, using your brain, that memory, you're using it, it's going to eventually click. But at first it can be frustrating. My advice, just hang in there and keep practicing. It'll be through practice is how you're really going to get to the point where you're not even thinking about it anymore. But that is a goal to attain. You're not going to be able to just sit down and automatically do this without thinking and going back and checking your charts. So just hang in there and keep practicing. Okay? I'm going to say it for the last time. In fact, it's so important. I capitalized everything this time. Learn genders when you learn new vocabulary. Every time you learn a new word and you look a word up, don't just say Buch. Say es Buch. Say it 5 times or whatever. Es Buch, es Buch, es Buch, es Buch. So that eventually when you're dealing with things, then you don't have to look up the word plus its gender. Because we're going to learn as we move on in this video series that gender is important, and it'll play into a lot of other factors as we move on. So get it out of the way now. Learn it up front. Es Buch. Okay? That's it for this video covering the nominative case. It might seem like a lot at first. Practice. My advice for you to practice with this topic would be create simple sentences. Get your dictionary out. Look around your room or your house and say, okay, let's say the refrigerator's broken this time. Okay, we had the phrase for it is broken. Look up the word refrigerator. Find out what the gender is. Don't just learn the word for refrigerator. Learn the gender as well. And then start using that in a sentence. Or pick animals and look up words for different animals and say they live and institute a city somewhere. In the sentence, say the horse lives in Elstown, as we had in our example. It's a good way to practice, not only practicing these definite articles and indefinite articles, but it's also a good way to learn vocabulary and genders at the same time. So that's my advice to you between now and the next video. But until then, bis die nächste Video. Mach's gut und schwätz Deutsch.